As Naruto fans, we've seen countless powerful shinobi, each with their own mind-blowing displays of power or well-thought-out strategies or their overpowered ninjutsu. However, a quick read of the series shows us that not all characters were created equally, and in some cases, characters who have a reputation for being extremely overpowered are even more impressive when you consider that for as formidable as they appear to be in the series, they never actually got to reach their prime levels of power, making them some of the biggest examples of what-ifs in the Naruto franchise, which is why in today's Naruto Explained video, we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 Naruto characters who had the most potential but died before they could reach that potential, and we'll be ranking them from weakest to strongest. Now, for the criteria for this list is pretty straightforward. They had to have clearly had insane potential, have been respected by their shinobi peers, and they had to have died before they ever reached their physical prime, which for determining what age a person's in their prime, we're going to be using a number I've seen multiple studies say is the peak physical age for a man, which is between 30 and 35 years old. So barring the exception to the rules, which again, exceptions don't make the standard, to keep this simple, the characters in question needed to have died before they reached age 30, since anything above the age of 30 would technically be them in their prime years. So people like Obito who died at age 31 and Nagato who died at age 35, they don't qualify. Coming at number 5 on the list, we're going to be going with Haku, everyone's favorite Naruto trap character. I think Haku is easily one of the more fascinating characters who we have on this list because he died at the age of 15, making him one of the youngest characters on the list itself. Haku at the start of the series was already a powerhouse, with it already being stated that Haku was stronger than Part 1 Kakashi by Kakashi himself, and Zabuza, the man who trained Haku, pretty much said the same thing when he was talking about Haku's power and skill in the manga version of the story, which means he'd have been more than powerful enough to take on villains from the end of Naruto Part 1, like say the Sound 5, who 4 of the members struggled against exhausted special Jonin like Genma, who are weaker than standard Jonin like Kakashi, despite the fact that Haku was literally one of the first antagonists who we meet in the series. It goes in the face of what you're usually expecting in shonen, where the entry point antagonists are supposed to be weaker than the ones afterwards, which is a testament to why he's on this list. On top of Haku having ice release, Haku at the age of 15 had remarkable skill, speed, and power, with Sasuke only being able to keep up with his speed because Sasuke had to use chakra to increase his speed, and even then, due to Haku's own self-imposed restraints, had he been deadly serious against Sasuke, even with Sasuke amping up his speed by using his chakra, he wouldn't have been able to keep up with Haku's base, let alone Haku when he uses the ice mirrors to create the mirrors to allow himself to move fast enough that even Sasuke's Sharingan and insight, having the precognition abilities, was still having some trouble tracking Haku's movements, and they were fast enough that Sasuke couldn't fully react to him, but he was doing a lot better than he was previously. In fact, Haku's most underrated speed feat comes from when he was already decked by a pissed off chakra cloak Naruto, and he sees Kakashi charging forward to kill Zabuza with a Raikiri, which has a noticeable speed amp being used for that thrusting jab. Haku blitzes his way across that long ass bridge and intercepts Kakashi's attack and takes it head on before Kakashi can even react, despite the fact that Kakashi has a Sharingan whose Eye of Insight is specifically used when using the Raikiri to allow the user to adjust to situations like this, which means Haku's full speed being used in this moment is potential enough that not even a skilled Sharingan user could actually track it. In the 4th Great Ninja War, we see a reanimated Haku who is actually weaker than his alive version's full power, be able to intercept and block the attacks of Might Guy and Rock Lee, on top of being fast enough to weave hand seals that he took away Kakashi's breath in the Land of Waves. Haku's also able to weave one-handed hand seals, the sign of a truly elite shinobi, at the same speed he could do with both hands. Haku, being trained by Zabuza, a former Anbu Black Op and a member of the 7 Ninja Swords of the Mist, has a very heightened sense of awareness of the human body, and given his ice relief was able to fire off smaller needle-like projectiles, Haku, had he been bloodlusted, would have been able to slice up the arteries like it's nothing, especially given the speed of his attacks. Using ice release, Haku was able to not only travel through mirrors at blinding speed, but he can use the ice release to make spikes around the ground like he did when he was a child, and in the war he's able to make a dome of ice for defensive purposes. The fact that at the age of 15 and having a self-imposed mental nerf, yet already be more powerful than Kakashi, someone who is considered one of the strongest Jonin in the 5 nations and stronger than Zabuza, one of the strongest 7 ninja swordsmen in the history of that organization, it's absolutely telling. Had Haku been allowed to live and gain more power and battle experience and train more, there's a solid argument that could have been made he would have jumped up several tiers in power. Haku would have been out here bodying some of your favorite Akatsuki members. At number 4, we're going to be be going with everyone's favorite mad bomber, Deidara. Deidara was already a Kage level shinobi despite only being 19 years old when he died. There's a reason why he's rubbing shoulders with a collection of S-rank shinobi like he did with the other Akatsuki members. It's simply put because Deidara had a lot of potential in him. It's easy to downplay Deidara because of how easily Itachi was able to take him out, but when you're losing to one of the best genjutsu specialists in the entire Naruto franchise, it's like making fun of someone because they lost a pickup game against the late great Kobe Bryant, or they lost a 3-point shooting contest with Steph Curry. There's no shame in losing against one of the best to ever do it. Deidara walking into the Hidden Sand Village with a strategy to take down and defeat a Kage in the form of Gar is absolutely impressive, especially considering Gar was a Jinchuriki at the time, but so is his battle with Sasuke, where honestly, even before he got to the point where he used C0 and suicide bombed himself to try and get victory, had Sasuke not been a walking hard counter form, Deidara would have won that fight well before it reached that point, because Sasuke having lightning release saved him from some of Deidara's attacks that would have checkmated him and checkmated 90% of the people that found themselves in that position. Anytime Nagato looks at losing you as being a huge loss to the Akatsuki, it proves the point even further because Nagato wouldn't have said that about just anyone, and it's likely because for as big of a hothead as Deidara can be, at age 19, he was only just beginning to come into his own as a shinobi. Deidara's raw power is also something worth looking at because in the series we see him take on two Jinchuriki where they have home field advantage, where he took on Gar in the Hidden Sand Village and he assisted with Three Tails on top of a lake, though you did have Tobi/Obito there when that battle took place. Given how well Deidara did at times against Sasuke, despite literally being at the disadvantage due to the chakra nature battle favoring Sasuke, we see him get the upper hand on Sasuke more than once, like he did when he had him caught between that clay dragon and his landmines planted into the ground, and again when he released that microscopic bomb in Sasuke's bloodstream that otherwise would have blown Sasuke up from the inside out had he not been running lightning release through his body. One of the more underrated moments of speed came from the fact that he got out the way of a pissed off Sasuke who was trying to speed blitz him in the manga. We see that he has enough self-awareness both in his own abilities that he took measures to train his eye to counter genjutsu after getting embarrassed by Itachi, and also take a situational awareness into account when in battle, like he did when he skillfully used the Hidden Sand Village against Gar to capture him and was in the process of tricking Naruto before Kakashi got Naruto to calm down during that same arc, and even then he was actively trying to implement strategies to separate Naruto from Kakashi. Deidara was not only more powerful than Haku, but he also had a higher ceiling in my opinion because he did show some criminally underrated skills in that battle with Sasuke, which honestly is one of the best 5 fights in the entire Naruto franchise. This is coming from someone who isn't necessarily a huge fan of Deidara. Now at number 3, we're going to be going with Shisui Uchiha. Like the other 2 characters on this list, I think Shisui had a ton of potential that was not reached, but unlike the other 2 characters, Shisui actually has a ton of fans who incorrectly downplay the character's powers and abilities. Shisui isn't just to be watered down to he has Koto Matsukami, so of course he's supposed to be feared. Shisui is actually a lot more talented than fans give him credit for, and a big part of the reason is because there's been disingenuous arguments made when it comes to the character. He was only 2.5 years older than Itachi during the time of the massacre, meaning that Shisui at the time of his death was knocking on the door turning 15, but not quite that age. Despite dying at such a young age, Shisui was one of the fastest characters in the universe, being given the nickname Shisui of the Body Flicker for a reason. Just his raw speed using the body flicker was enough that he was making after images that were tangible enough that they could be confused with shadow clones. When you look up the speed required for an after image, you see how fast Shisui was actually moving here. His speed using the body flicker was also so fast that not even elite sensory ninja could pick up on his location. We know that by the events of his death, Shisui is also still stronger than Itachi, though this was Itachi before he awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan and got the additional boost in power, with it being revealed in the Itachi story of Midnight that Shisui was consistently mopping the floor with Itachi in combat training, from everything to Genjutsu to Taijutsu to Shuriken Jutsu. However, I will say there's actually evidence that suggests that Shisui's actually stronger than that Itachi massacred the clan, but we'll get into that in a moment. Shisui was also strong enough that he was considered to be the strongest of the Konoha Uchiha clan, and strong enough that Danzo took out measures according to Itachi's story of Midnight, which covers in-depth the story leading up to and immediately after the Uchiha massacre. Danzo made a point to have Shisui poisoned by a bug so small that you need Mangekyo's Sharingan cut on just to be able to see it, to slow down his reaction speed, all while he could ensure that he could snatch his eye. Despite dying at such a young age, Shisui had already mastered 3 changes in chakra nature according to the 4th Naruto databook, with it being stated he mastered fire release, wind release, and lightning release. With the Itachi story Midnight actually noting that Shisui's fire style jutsu is actually one of the largest amongst members of the clan at that point in time. In the anime, we see Shisui in episode 358 bust out a fire release so powerful that it took quite a few Anbu Black Ops to counter what he used. While it's clearly not on the level of Madara's majestic flame destroyer jutsu, this is still impressive nonetheless. Shisui is also implied to be one of the few shinobi in universe who had a flea on site order attached to his name, something that we see when Ao and a group of mist shinobi take note of Shisui's presence, and instead of wanting to smoke, those boys started coughing like they had asthma. If we include the Naruto Ninja Escapades OVA that Naruto series creator Masashi Kishimoto stepped in to handle the story for, the OVA version of Shisui versus Danzo outright calls Shisui the strongest member of the Uchiha clan at that point in time, which would have put him above Fugaku, the clan leader, and Itachi. And honestly, compiling all the information that we have, Danzo wasn't necessarily wrong about his conclusion either, and given Danzo's job is to gather intelligence, he wouldn't have said something like that for nothing, since, as we stated before, Shisui is already said to be besting Itachi in combat training, and the Uchiha Massacre version of Itachi with the Mangekyo Sharingan is actually still implied to consider himself inferior to Shisui in power, with his own internal monologue going so far as to say, had Shisui still been alive and learned that Itachi was going to massacre the clan, Shisui could have physically stopped him if it came down to a fight. Not using Kotomatsukami, physically stop him. This Itachi in the anime version of this Itachi story of Midnight directly calls Fugaku his worst possible matchup and states he's unsure if he can defeat Fugaku in a 1 versus 1 battle, with the implication being that the two of them were relative to each other in power, yet this same Itachi still thinks Shisui could have physically beat him in combat. The other thing to keep in mind is that Shisui awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan at the youngest age of any Uchiha in the series, so all the people saying Sarda getting the Mangekyo is the youngest ever, that's absolute cap. Shisui was 6 going on 7 when he awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, yet despite getting the Mangekyo at such a young age, Shisui was smart enough not to spam the Mangekyo, sticking only to using his Sharingan when needed and using the Mangekyo as a trump card, which is why he went almost an entire decade with the Mangekyo without going blind. While it's easy to say that you can get to where Shisui would have ended up in power just by looking at Itachi, it's worth noting that even for as strong as Itachi was, we never actually saw his full power, which brings me to number 2 on this list. At number 2, we have Itachi Uchiha. Itachi gets this high up on the list for obvious reasons. Itachi died at age 21, meaning he, like the other characters on this list, hadn't even reached his prime yet. However, this is even more so of a sad fact when you consider that on top of having near blindness due to the effects of the Mangekyo Sharingan, Itachi also suffered from an illness that robbed him of his true power, forcing Itachi to end fights in the fastest way possible because of his extremely poor stamina. We learned in the Naruto Jinraiden story that just the drugs that Itachi was taking in order to combat his illness, and the drugs themselves were so powerful that when Sasuke tried one of them out, the vertigo side effects left Sasuke, who was perfectly healthy mind you, struggling to stand upright and needing several moments to compose himself and needing to literally sleep off the effects of the drug. And upon realizing that Itachi took these drugs daily, Sasuke came to the conclusion Obito was right. Had Itachi wanted to kill him during that battle, he could have ended that fight right after it started, and this information leads to Sasuke outright admitting after he got the Mangekyo Sharingan that he was still weaker than the sick Itachi that he fought. From a young age, Itachi was gifted, being strong enough that even before he was an academy student, he not only speed blitzed Jonin, but was also showing the level of chakra control to amp up his strength for a chakra enhanced punch that in the Itachi story of Daylight left Itachi's mother Mikoto and the other Jonin looking at the scene speechless, because Itachi destroyed a massive chunk of debris that was about to crush civilians using the same chakra enhanced punches that you see Tsunade use. By the time Itachi graduated as a Genin, Itachi was already outshining his Jonin sensei on missions to a point where a grown-ass man was getting jealous of Itachi, and he was purposely not recommending him for the Chunin exams, which forced Hiruzen to allow Itachi to not only take the exams alone without his own team, but he also ended up setting the record for the Force of Death by completing it in a faster time than was ever used before, and he would have completed it sooner had he not been purposely running through the Forest of Death looking for Shinobi to fight so he could test out his Sharingan. This record Itachi set would stand until Gaara and the Sand siblings broke it in Naruto's Chunin exams in part Part 1. Itachi was already a prodigy before he finished the academy, but here is in stating that he had the wisdom of a Hokage at age 7 when Sasuke spoke to the Edo Tensei Hokage, and Itachi on the Chunin exam's written exam scored the second highest exam score in the history of that exam. This display of intelligence and Jonin caliber strength, with Itachi already being stronger than most of the Jonin in the village despite not having a Sharingan for a large chunk of his time as a Genin, is what led to Danzo making it a point to try and recruit Itachi, with the Itachi story of Daylight revealing that Danzo tried to get Itachi in the Anbu Black Ops as soon as when Itachi graduated the academy before it got shut down by the third Hokage who refused it. By the time Itachi was 12 years old, he was already stronger than Kakashi, outright taking the title of Anbu captain from him at an early age, and after awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan, he would be credited with the massacre of the Uchiha clan, and 1 year later at the age of 13, Itachi would easily one-shot Orochimaru, one of the legendary signing. Itachi would beat Orochimaru by not even having to use his Mangekyo Sharingan, just high-level basic Sharingan genjutsu called the Demonic Illusion Genjutsu, which forced Orochimaru to have to cut off his own hand in order to break the genjutsu, which speaks volumes to its effectiveness. A year later, while in the Akatsuki, according to the Akatsuki Hiden Evil Flowers in Full Bloom story, Itachi was not only stronger than Kisame, but Itachi was powerful enough that Kisame was careful not to piss off Itachi to avoid a one-on-one fight. By the time Itachi turned 18 years old, Itachi was pulling up into Konoha already sick with his illness, bullying Kakashi and Kurenai. He easily flipped Kurenai's genjutsu on her, despite Kurenai being hailed as the best genjutsu user in the village at that time, which we see backed up in the Konoha Shinden story, where the narrator states this about Kurenai, and also in the second official Naruto databook, where she's listed as being the second best genjutsu user in the story at that point, only second to Itachi, which again, Itachi is someone who is hailed as a prodigy for genjutsu and has the Sharingan, so that's not an insult. Despite his illness, he was weaving hand signs so fast that Kakashi's Sharingan was unable to track the speed, and he was pulling off sequential ninjutsu at speeds that Kakashi was struggling to keep up with. At the age of 21, despite being on his deathbed, Itachi was controlling the fight with Sasuke, purposely dragging it out in order to force Sasuke to run out of chakra so Itachi could seal away Orochimaru and free Sasuke of the curse mark, and this is despite Sasuke on top of having his hatred amp for his 3-tomo Sharingan, but also having the 10 times multiplier for the curse mark of Orochimaru and having Orochimaru's chakra absorbed into his being. Despite all these power-ups that Sasuke had, Itachi was literally shown in control of the fight, and upon reviewing the footage of the fight that Zetsu recorded, Obito came to the conclusion that there are multiple times in that fight that Itachi could have killed Sasuke had his heart actually been in it. Itachi having this illness was one of the biggest nerfs in the entire series. For reference, in the Itachi story of Midnight, while Itachi's taking out the Uchiha clan, he uses Tsukiyomi 5 separate times throughout the massacre, and even uses the Matarasu to burn someone to death. Yet when we fast forward a few years later in the timeline, just using Mangekyo Sharingan less than a handful of times was enough to leave him exhausted, with Kisame even telling Itachi not to overdo it in the Konoha Crush arc, which is a sign of his extremely depleted chakra reserves and his stamina as a result. However, despite this, Itachi's clone that only had 30% of the chakra of the real Itachi was holding the upper hand against a stronger Kakashi than the one that you saw in Naruto Part 1, when he was revived as an Edo Tensei, while he wasn't at full power that he would have had if he was healthy Itachi. Edo Itachi, once Kabuto took control of his body, was trading blows with Casey One Naruto, and had Itachi's personality not been allowed to stay in effect, he would have landed some serious blows on Killer B that would have caught B by surprise had Itachi literally not warned him right before the attacks were finishing. And on top of this, Itachi possesses enough intelligence and battle awareness that he systematically exploited the weaknesses of the Rinnegan almost immediately in battle, and used coordinated diversion in order to seal Nagato with the Tosca Blade, keeping true to his no-nonsense approach to ending a battle before the enemy is able to get into the groove. Itachi dying before his prime and before a cure for his illness being found is one of the most criminal aspects of the story. However, despite all of that, Itachi has nothing on number 1 on this list, which is Minato Namikaze. Minato comes in at number 1 for the most potential because, for as overpowered as Minato was, he died before he ever reached his prime, dying at the age of 24. Despite dying so young, Minato had already mastered fire release, wind release, and lightning release according to the 4th data book. He possessed possessed the massive chakra reserves required to learn Sage Mode, and we see evidence of his large chakra reserves in the form that Minato was able to spam the Flying Raijin and multiple variations of the jutsu that he made. Despite the Naruto manga telling us via Genma and the other Hokage guards that this jutsu requires an enormous chakra pool to use, with the three of them saying they have to pull their chakra together just to perform the basic teleportation of the jutsu. Minato was enough of a beast that he not only used the jutsu multiple times on the night that he died, but he literally used it to teleport away a Bijudama from the full nine-tailed fox, summon Gamabunta, who is stated to require a large chakra amount in order to summon, and then teleport away the entire nine-tailed fox to another location, with the feat of teleporting away a massive essence of chakra known as the Nine Tails, leaving Minato reaching his limits and still having enough chakra to use the Reaper Death Seal, split the chakra of the Nine Tails in half, store his own wife chakra, store his own chakra inside of Naruto, set contingency plans in place for each of them emerging inside of Naruto's consciousness under certain conditions, summon another summoning to take the key for Naruto's seal, and being the Giga Chad that he is, Minato died with a smile on his face. Minato was already one of the strongest shinobi alive when he was 24, but you can make the very solid argument that alive Hokage Minato is actually stronger than 31-year-old White Mask Obito who had the Rinnegan in the war. Given that as of this recording, Masashi Kishimoto's upcoming one-shot manga has not been released, but it is being implied that Minato actually mastered the Flying Raijin as a teenager before he even created the Rasengan, is further evidence for why he should be considered the biggest case of wasted potential, because had he been allowed to live for another 16 years by the events of the Fourth Great Ninja War, and he trained the entire time, Minato would have been an even bigger monster. 16 years worth of training for Hokage Minato would have had an even bigger leap in power than the Boruto era Kage made in 15 years of training, which if we can make 3,000 likes in this video, I'll do a video explaining to you exactly how strong Minato could have gotten if he never died. Because if he's already this strong as he is right now at 24, a 40-year-old Minato would have been an absolute monster.